Happy New Year everybody, and welcome back to another video on the channel. In fact, this is going to be the first video on the channel in 2024. So thank you all for a brilliant 2023. I just want to say first of all, it was the best year in terms of growth for the channel so far. And let's kick things off with a banger video in 2024, although you guys can be the judge of that. So it's a new year, but it's the same old story for the Sydney Test match. I'm recording this shortly after Stumps on day 2, where rain saw pretty much the entire second half of the day's play washed out. And this is beginning to become a regular theme for the Sydney Test match. Of the last 5 Test matches in Sydney, 4 of them have ended in draws as the result of rain shortening play. And while the forecast is slightly less gloomy for the final 3 days of this current Test match, it is still entirely possible that the game is headed for the same fate. All this bad weather in recent times experienced during the New Year's Test match has led to a bit of a debate on whether the location of the New Year's Test match should be changed. In fact, in 2022, the late great Shane Warne even suggested that the SCG opening test should be moved to the start of the summer and have Brisbane replace it as the New Year's Test. But would a switch like this be worthwhile making, or would it just mean that the first test of the summer would be washed out instead of the third or fourth? Well, as you can see by looking at this bar graph, in the month of January, Sydney averages just a tick over 100 millimetres of rain. When you compare that to December, which is obviously when the first test of the cricket summer always takes place in Australia, you can see that Sydney averages just a little bit over 75 millimetres of rain. Now this is still a decent number, but would you take 100 millimetres or 75 millimetres? So obviously if it was to be moved, then Brisbane has already been shouted as an option. However, Adelaide and Perth still have a stake in this race. In fact, you could argue that both of those states would do an even better job than Brisbane. Comparing the capacities of the 3 stadiums in the running, Perth's Optus Stadium obviously has the largest of 60,000, while Adelaide Oval has roughly 53,000 and the Gabba has 42,000. In terms of weather and the likelihood of it to rain during the test match or not, Perth also comes out on top of this, with not a single day having been washed out at a Perth test match. So based on this, it would look like Optus Stadium would be the most suitable place to host a New Year's test match, right? Well, recent crowds at the venue tell a different story. In the first test match of the cricket summer, Perth recorded some absolutely dismal crowd numbers, not even managing to reach 20,000 on any one of the days. But despite the poor test match crowds in Perth, the Perth Scorchers in the Big Bash League have been consistently drawing in big numbers for a number of years, and even managed to get a crowd of 42,000 on last year's Boxing Day match. This big crowd for the marquee match means that there is potential for Perth fans to flock to a big event. However, Big Bash is an entirely different ballgame to Test cricket. Well, if you say that Perth can't get big enough crowds to Test matches, then what about Adelaide Oval? It has a capacity not much smaller than Optus Stadium and has been getting pretty decent crowds for a very long time to Test match cricket. It's an iconic stadium and it's a great place to watch the cricket from either the stands or the hill. Then of course there's the Gabba, which quite often is where the first test match of the summer is played, and it is also another iconic cricket stadium. So after comparing all the stadiums which the New Year's test match could be moved to, should it even be moved? After all, it is an iconic event on the calendar. As well as the weather, I believe that the pitches on the SCG are not as good as those in Perth and Brisbane especially. The SCG pitch is often dry and flat, whereas the Perth and Brisbane pitches allow for interesting contests. Now the only possible negative I can see out of moving the SCG test is the potential negative effect it might have on the Jane McGrath Foundation. However, I believe that if they fixture the SCG test to be somewhere in the school holidays, then enough people should be able to get to the test match and the Jane McGrath Foundation should continue to thrive and grow. So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on this whole debate. So yes, I do believe that the New Year's test match should be moved away from the SCG. if I had to pick one ground that should host it every year, I'd probably go with the Gabba. I feel like that has the best atmosphere. It's normally pretty much packed out for test matches. And the pitch on it normally creates a great and interesting contest between bat and ball. So yeah, that is pretty much going to wrap up my first video of 2024. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you think about the topic, whether the SCG should continue to hold the New Year's Test match, or whether the Gabba should get it, whether the Adelaide Oval should get it, whether Optus Stadium should get it, or whether it should be rotated around between the three of those. So yeah, hope you did enjoy the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.